King Solomon is a renowned figure in the Christian faith. For a while, he was considered the wisest man in the world, ruling over the most powerful and prosperous kingdom in history. But things would take a dark turn. He would decide to turn his back on God's teachings, which would lead to the destruction of his kingdom. This is the story of King Solomon. King Solomon was called to lead Israel after the passing of his father, King David. While we don't know precisely how old he was, scholars agree that he was fairly young. Most people estimate his age to be between 15 and 20 at the start of his reign. Shortly after being made the king, Solomon's relationship with God began. God appeared to Solomon and asked what he could do for the king.
Instead of wealth, I would like wisdom, O great God.
Instead of asking for riches or power, Solomon asked for wisdom. This decision impressed God, who gave him great knowledge. But he didn't stop there. He also gave him more wealth and honor than any other king in history. Because of God's wisdom, King Solomon could make good decisions to build his kingdom. His subjects also relied on his knowledge to help them settle their debates. Perhaps the best example of this occurred when two women brought a baby to his court. They had both given birth within days of each other. Tragically, one baby passed away. Now, both of them claim to be the true parent of the surviving infant. To solve this problem, King Solomon produced a sword and said he was going to cut the baby in half. One woman accepted this decision without objection, but the second woman was distraught.
King, this is my child. I swear to God itself. Claus believed me.
She begged the wise king to give the baby to the first woman. You'd be relieved to know that King Solomon didn't kill the child. He declared the second woman the true mother, as she was the only one concerned for the welfare of the baby. He also attracted people from around the globe. One of the best examples of this was the Queen of Sheba, who brought a huge contingent of camels carrying masses of spices and gold. She was willing to give such huge riches so that she could pose her toughest questions to King Solomon. The Bible was strongly influenced by the wisdom that Solomon imparted. In particular, King Solomon features prominently in the Book of Proverbs and Ecclesiastes. He is also believed to have written the Song of Songs, a popular hymn that shows his love of God. However, the pinnacle of his rule was achieved with the building of the mighty Temple of Solomon. A construction of this scale had never been attempted in ancient Israel before. Originally, King David was to build the temple, but because he had spilled too much blood, this job was left to his son. The immensity of the workforce gives us some idea of how large the project was. It's believed that it took a workforce of 150,000 people 7 years to finish the building. Inside, the walls were said to be made from cedar and lined with gold. Once completed, the massive structure would house some of the most precious religious artifacts in human history. This included the Ark of the Covenant, but it also held a symbolic significance. It represented the unification of the 12 tribes of Israel. Soon, word of the spectacular kingdom had spread throughout the ancient world. There is another thing that King Solomon is well known for: his love of women. It's believed that he had over 700 wives. Some of these were to further political relationships. Others, though, were because Solomon fell in love quickly. Solomon was warned that his multiple relationships went against the teachings of God. Choosing to ignore this would sow the seeds of his destruction. The foreign wives began to corrupt Solomon's mind, leading him away from his faith in God. Despite this, God appeared to Solomon twice, asking him to turn his back on false idols and sin. But Solomon chose to ignore these warnings. As a consequence, God decided to splinter the kingdom that Solomon had built. However, it wouldn't happen during King Solomon's lifetime. Instead, it would be torn away from his sons, who would only be given a tribe to lead. Surely enough, after Solomon passed away at the age of 55, his son Rehoboam was appointed the king. But the tribes of Israel would reject him, and the resulting division would split the kingdom. This fighting would also lead to the destruction of the mighty temple that Solomon had built. Today, Christians continue to look to King Solomon for his wisdom and to admire his significant achievements. But his story also reminds us of the importance of following God's path and the consequences of stepping out of line.